Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of Song Stories, the newest series on Steve and Dave's YouTube channel. In the music industry, a lot of songs are written, arranged, and produced with as much passion and inspiration as you'd find on an assembly line. But of course, many of the songs that we love the best were dredged up from the depths of some tortured artist's soul, or they provide a deeply intimate insight into a key moment in the composer's personal life. This is the stuff that great stories are made of, and it's these stories that we'll be exploring in this series. Dozens, if not hundreds, of songs have great background stories, and we'll get to as many of them as we can in the coming months and years. But we have to start somewhere, and Killing Me Softly with His Song from 1972 seemed as good a jumping off point as any, as it combines so many of the aspects that make for a compelling story. We recently talked about the story while discussing Roberta Flack's hit version during our 50 Years Ago This Month episode for February 1973. What follows is an excerpt from that show.
At number 5, then, well, she's on a roll, I think. I think it's safe to say. It's Roberta Flack with Killing Me Softly with His Song.
Ding, 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 ding. And that's our Song of the Month.
It is.
This is a new feature of Steve and Dave's 50 Years Ago This Month. We want to start talking about one of the songs that we're looking at a little bit more depth, and this is certainly a fantastic song for that. There's a lot to unwrap here. So just to get started, Killing Me Softly with His Song. The artist was Roberta Flack, as you were just saying, Steve. She is on a roll. 1972 was very good to her. 1973 is going to be another big year for her, and this is certainly part of it. Just real briefly, 1972, of course, it was the song that she had sung on her very first album from 1969.
That's right.
First time ever I saw your face.
That's right. That's right.
And but it wasn't released as a single. The album itself didn't get very much traction.
Not much at all, right?
When it was first released. But then maybe you could tell the story of what made that such a huge hit. Then,
yeah. So what made it was
2 years later.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood. It's an odd story, but Clint Eastwood, who was a jazz aficionado, really into jazz, was thinking about a film that would have kind of jazz as a kind of play a central role. Film involving Play Misty for Me, a DJ, late night DJ, spin jazz records and whatnot. Looking for songs as part of the soundtrack, heard this song, and was just bowled over by it. And so while it was by that point, it was almost a kind of an oldie, a couple of years old. Got in touch, right? Got in touch with the record company, got in touch with Flack. And then I think, in fact, that the song appears on the film's soundtrack. I know it's a part of the film, yes, but I think it's on the soundtrack as well, which then vaulted it into the public consciousness for the first time. And from there, then it really had legs and became a monster hit for her. Monster hit.
Yeah. In fact, it was even the name of a couple of albums by people like Andy Williams, and
that's right.
These guys.
Right. Yeah.
First time ever I saw your face. So clearly it was the song of the year in that sense. And this is going to be very, very similar. So Killing Me Softly with His Song. There's really a couple of stories here, a couple background stories. First of all, what the song's about. Lori Lieberman, who provided the story for the song, was a 19-year-old aspiring musician when she was introduced to her co-writers Gimbel and Fox in 1971,
Mhm.
two veterans of the music writing scene. But the point is, 1971, she went to Los Angeles, met these guys. A year later, um, she went to see Don McLean perform at the Troubadour nightclub in Los Angeles.
Right.
American Pie was already rising in the charts when she watched his performance, but the song that most strongly affected her was Empty Chairs. So while she was listening to that song, she began to scribble notes on paper napkin. And after the concert, she phoned Gimbel to read him her napkin notes and just talk about the experience of just feeling so raw and exposed while listening to the song. Her description reminded him of a song title that was already in his little idea notebook, Killing Us Softly with Some Blues.
Mhm.
That was lifted directly from a novel by Julio Cortázar, Upscotch. The line was right there, right in the novel, but he read it and said, that's a song lyric, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
that's what he wanted to use. Anyway, in 1973, Gimbel went ahead and said, quote, her conversation fed me, inspired me, gave me some language and a choice of words. So they're going to work together and collaborate on the lyrics for this. This is important because later that is a contested
Yes.
story, right?
Well, that's for sure.
So anyway, Don McLean was pleasantly surprised to find out that the song was about him. Quote, I'm absolutely amazed. I've heard both Laurie's and Roberta's version, and I must say I'm very humbled about the whole thing. You can't help but feel that way about a song written and performed as well as this one is, end quote.
Wow. Imagine Don McLean being complimentary.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, it's
All right.
a little off brand.
But anyway, that's the background story. That's
Yeah.
where the lyrics came from. And an actual experience that was converted and translated into some lyrics for this. Now, the second part of this background story is the story of this musical partnership, right? The writers were Charles Fox. Charles Fox was a composer, did extensive work for TV and film.
Yes, that's right.
Including, among other things, the Sunshine Pop background music for Love American Style, the themes to ABC's Wide World of Sports, Monday Night Football, and the theme song for The Love Boat.
Yes, I mean, these are all right. Hummable. I mean, virtually every American would be able to sort of, give you 3 bars of something.
And it goes on because he then collaborated with Norman Gibbel. They had a kind of a partnership. Right. And they would work on theme songs for Happy Days.
Yes.
Laverne and Shirley, Making Our Dreams Come True. Right? Yeah. Angie, with Different Worlds, sung by Maureen McGovern. The Paper Chase.
Oh, yeah.
The First Years, sung by Seals and Croft. Nominated for an Emmy for Best Song. And Wonder Woman. And I think
that's right.
I think we may have to even include the Wonder Woman song because it's just
so
you have to hear it. You have to hear it to believe it. If you're not
that's far from a career highlight, but yeah, we will include it. But,
but they also wrote a couple of themes for films like Foul Play with Chevy Chase, I think.
Chevy Chase and Goldie Hawn.
Goldie Hawn, right? And that was Ready to Take a Chance Again by Barry Manilow, sung by Barry Manilow.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And for The Last American Hero.
Oh.
Do you know what song that was?
Well, I don't know. I know that the theme was sung by Joey Scarborough. Believe it or not.
I Got a Name by Jim Croce. They wrote that.
Yes. Wait a minute. What?
They wrote
Last American Hero. Oh, Last American. No, yeah, okay. The film Last American Hero.
the film The Last American Hero. They wrote that song.
They
Which
wrote I Got a Name?
I Got a Name. Yeah. I always figured Croce wrote it.
Like the Singing Bird and the Croaking Toad?
Yes. Unreal. It's a great song. It's a
That's
really
a great
good song.
Yeah, it really is.
Anyway, they wrote all that, right? So these are the two guys. They meet this young aspiring singer.
Yeah, this is yeah.
And they signed her to a management contract in which they would write her songs, manage her career, and take 20% of her earnings.
20%.
And they had a common Jewish heritage. They were all Scorpios, which back in the early 70s, back in the early 70s in Los Angeles was a thing that
it really was, but I'm sorry.
Had some meaning, so
yeah.
So they began pulling songwriting ideas. And in fact, Gimbel started a secret affair with Lieberman.
Oh boy.
So he was more than twice as old as she was and married.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
so
it's the 70s.
Somewhere like a year later, after they meet, they write the song together based on her experience at the show. And a few years later, 1976, the Lieberman Gimbel Fox songwriting team turned sour. Gimbel had divorced his wife 3 years earlier, but Lieberman just called it quits in 76. She said he had, quote, become emotionally abusive, controlling, and unfaithful. It's just in general, she felt like she was being very manipulated and controlled in that management situation, right? So she asked to be freed of her contract. Her lawyer said, they could have done what nice guys in the business do and said, all right, we had a good run. Good luck. Sure. You're free to go. But Gimbel and Fox did not do that. They directed their lawyer to demand $27,000 from her to pay expenses and demand another $250,000 of her future income. How dickish is that?
Oh, boy.
All right. But that's not the end of it, right? Because throughout the 70s, they were all on the same page in terms of what happened. How did this song get written? Right? And it's the story that I just told.
Yeah.
But around 1997, for whatever reason, around 1997, Gimbel and Fox started backing away from that version.
That's right.
They tried to reduce or dismiss her contribution to the song. Sure. In fact, Fox published a memoir in 2010 called Killing Me Softly, My Life in Music. And it contained nothing about the McLean performance inspiring the song. And just basically denigrated her role in the songwriting team. When asked about the McLean origin story, Fox said, quote, I think it's called an urban legend. It really didn't happen that way. So he described Gimbel and himself writing the song, then playing it for Lieberman, who was then reminded of her experience. Oh yeah, I had something similar happen to me. That was his version of the story. Unfortunately, they had already put so much out there in the public, in the press and stuff.
Oh,
there was no way it happened that way.
Yeah.
In fact, Gimbel also demanded that McLean remove the text from his website that said he had been the inspiration for Killing Me Softly. McLean didn't remove the text. Instead, his lawyer sent Gimbel a copy of a 1973 New York Daily article in which Gimbel is quoted and essentially confirms her account of what happened.
Again, the amazing part of this is Don McLean once again sort of weighing in on us.
Don McLean being a good guy.
Yeah, it doesn't give you a stomach ache. Yeah, it's like, what?
No, that's unusual. Yeah, but yeah, there was no way it happened the way they said it did. So
Yeah,
you know, how dickish do these guys have to be? It's the one song, it's her one claim to fame, and they can't even leave her that.
it's yeah, that, admittedly, it is an odd. It's kind of an odd pairing initially. I mean, these guys were well established. She was a neophyte, all of that.
She has a beautiful voice. I listened to her version
Sure,
of
yeah,
the song.
okay,
Very obviously a talented singer.
yeah.
We'll include that on the playlist as well.
But it also speaks to the it also speaks to the mores of the time, right? This kind of thing, and the relationship that ensued and all of that. I mean, in the 21st century is, you know,
Oh, there's these slimy shark types out there in the music business. Nobody has any doubt. The entertainment business.
Yeah,
there's a lot of it out there, but why be one of those guys?
Well, I agree completely, absolutely. The thing about the Roberta Flack though is that she is so affecting as a singer that you completely buy the notion that this is her story, that she wrote the song.
Yeah, absolutely.
Completely. I mean, it's hard to even imagine that other people were involved in it because she just completely sort of just owns it.
She owns it. Yeah, it's in fact, the song was really well received. It spent a total of 5 weeks at #1 in February and March. They were not consecutive weeks, but it was more weeks than any other record in 1973. In fact, Billboard ranked "Killing Me Softly" with his song as the #3 song for 1973. So it did extremely well. The critical reception was quite good. It won a Grammy, one of 4 Grammys that Roberta Flack actually won in her career.
Yeah.
One for the record of the year and for the best female pop vocal performance. So she won 2 1974 Grammys, 2 1973 Grammys. Those were her years, right? 72.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. That established her, and then she went on to build a career from there. You know, but that was definitely the high water mark.
No question. Yeah, no question. But it's
just a little bit about who was involved, because clearly something like this is not an accident. You had, first of all, an excellent arrangement by Flack herself, which made it her own. But she had people like Eric Gale on guitar. He had just finished recording his Negril album with the Wailers band. Peter Tosh on vocals in Kingston, Jamaica. And she called him and begged him to come home to New York to help with her album "Killing Me Softly." And he was working through some things, and he really didn't want to go back. He wanted to stay in Jamaica. Was having a good time there, and so she flew the band to Kingston, and they rehearsed much of the album right there before ultimately going back with Gail to New York and doing the recordings. But originally they went to Tough Gong Studios.
Oh yeah,
in Kingston to do the rehearsals. Now Gail often worked as a session musician, working with people like, just to name a few, Joe Cocker, the Drifters, Aretha Franklin, Lena Horne, Billy Joel, Quincy Jones, Diana Ross.
There you go.
Gladys Knight and the Pips, George Benson, Herb Albert, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Herbie Hancock, Paul Simon, Carly Simon, Nina Simone, Kenny Loggins, and so on and so forth. So very much in demand, very much like Ralph McDonald. Ralph McDonald came from the calypso corner, so not Jamaica as such, but also kind of the tropical music idea. He played the congas, percussion and tambourine, steel pan. He's also known for some of his compositions, like "Where Is the Love," which is another song that Roberta Flack won a Grammy with.
Absolutely.
As a duet with Donny Hathaway. He wrote "Just the Two of Us" for Bill Withers.
And Grover Washington Jr.
Grover Washington, yeah.
Yeah.
And Mr. Magic, recorded by Grover Washington. And his recording credits number in the hundreds and include working with people like Burt Bacharach, George Benson, David Bowie, Art Garfunkel, Steely Dan, James Taylor, Luther Vandross, Amy Winehouse, Ashford and Simpson, Nana Muscuri, Average White Band, Hall & Oates. Spent several years as a charter member of Jimmy Buffett's Coral Reefer Band, and also worked with some of the same people that Gail had worked with, like Aretha Franklin, Billy Joel, Paul Simon, and so on. So these guys are well-known session players. And then we have someone like Ron Carter on bass.
Yep.
His appearances on 2,221 recording sessions.
That's right.
Make him the most recorded jazz bassist in history.
Yeah.
And also, although he's also recorded with cello and electric bass, his weapon of choice is the double bass. And he's won 3 Grammy Awards. So, you've got this guy on bass. Last but not least, Grady Tate on drums.
Oh, yeah.
And when he was just around 30 years old, he moved to New York City and became a drummer in the Quincy Jones Band. And his distinctive sound can be heard on many of the classic Jimmy Smith and Wes Montgomery albums that were recorded on the Verb label in the 60s. During the 70s, he was a member of the New York Jazz Quartet. And in 1981, he played the drums and percussion for Simon and Garfunkel's concert in Central Park.
That's right. Yeah.
As a sideman, he played with, he was more in the jazz corner, so he played with people like Jimmy Smith, Astrid Gilberto, Ella Fitzgerald, Duke Ellington, Count Basie, also Quincy Jones, Eddie Harris, J.J. Johnson, et cetera, right? So these were the people working on this recording. Again, no coincidence that this was such a big thing.
No question. I mean, as the initial song of the month, it ticks all the boxes. It's a magnificent number.
Last but not least, just the producer was Joel Dorn. Joel Dorn had produced all of Roberta Flack's albums up to and including this one, which was also called Killing Me Softly. It was her 5th studio album. And she would start producing her own albums and working with some other people from the next album on. But up until then, he had been her producer and produced the 5 Grammy-winning recordings, including 4 that she also won Grammys for.
Yeah.
1973, he produced Bette Midler's album, The Divine Miss M. Before his success with Flack and Midler, Dorn produced recordings by jazz artists Les McCann, Eddie Harris, Charles Mingus, and Herbie Mann. And when he left Atlantic in 1974 and moved to A&M Records, he also helped foster the careers of the Neville Brothers and Leon Redbone. So
that's awesome. Yeah.
Somebody that was also very involved in a lot of good music in the early 70s.
No question. There we go. So it's a magnificent number. It's a magnificent number. And one of the songs of the 70s for sure. So at number 5, right? The song of the month is
Incredible Story. Yeah.
Yeah. Roberta Flack's Killing Me Softly with this song.
So let's listen in a little bit to this delightful piece.
drumming my pain with his fingers, singing my life with his words, killing me softly with his song, killing me softly with his song, telling my whole life with his words, killing me softly with his song. I heard he sang a good song. I heard he had a style. And so I came to see him to listen for a while. And there he was, this young boy, a stranger to my eyes, strumming my faith with his fingers, singing my life with his words, killing me softly with his song, killing me softly with his song, telling my whole life with his words, killing me softly with his song.
Okay, so that was the song of the month. We hope you enjoyed the first episode of our new series. We'd love to hear from you in the comments below, especially if you have a hot tip for a song that you think we should look into. You can subscribe here to keep up with our latest shows. If you're looking for something a bit different, click here for an episode of Rock Art. And as always, be sure to check out the great music from this episode's dedicated playlist right here. Last but not least, check Twitter for a new Steve and Dave's tweet every day. So long. Hope to see you again soon.